Hello and welcome to our annual event here on the beach at Revere Beach during the 19th this year International Sand Sculpting Festival, where we have conversations with the mayor. And this year, our conversation is with Acting Mayor Patrick Keefe. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you, and thanks for having me, Ed.
It's a real pleasure, and of course we all know that this is probably one of the biggest city's assets. I'm sure there are other great assets, and it's great to be here on a beautiful day,
Right.
and for this great event, which is probably one of the greatest events going on in the city.
It's one of the greatest events going on in all of Massachusetts.
Good point.
We're very proud of it, and not just, I used to say the old hidden gem of Revere, but I don't believe we're a hidden gem anymore. People have been coming from all over the world. We've noticed international tourism in Revere has actually spiked big time, and we're seeing that with our local revenues. So it's exciting to have.
Now that is exciting. It really is. And you think back to, this is the 19th one, and I remember back to like the 5th and the 6th one and what the event was like then and what it's become now. I think there are 16 international sand sculptors in this event this year, which is incredible. This event is one of the greatest summer events, but there are a number of other summer events going on. Parks and Rec, Revere Partnership, there's a whole bunch of people involved in keeping things going all summer long. You want to talk about some of those?
We have an action-packed schedule, but before we did that, I wanted to make sure that I thanked the partnership for putting this together every year, working with the city of Revere, working with our local authorities, DCR and our state, of course the police and the fire presence that are going to be on the beach from today and throughout the entire weekend. We're expecting close to 750,000 people to hit the beach from today until Sunday. Yeah. So that's a heavy lift, and we can't do it alone. So a lot of kudos goes to all the people that are involved to make this happen.
Yeah, and having been on the Revere Beach Partnership at one time, back in way probably 10, 15 years ago, I know exactly what it takes to pull this off.
Oh my God.
The planning that starts way months before all of this, and the collaboration with the city, the DCR. I mean, there's so much that goes into it, and you're right. There are a lot of people to thank for pulling something like this off.
So the city has a ton of events that are going to be going on throughout the summer, but of course we've already starting the planning process for fall and winter events. Of course, in the fall we have our fall festival, and then we have some of our winter more seasonal holiday events. But this summer alone, the recreation department has put together such a great agenda. So I encourage everyone to go onto revere.org and to check out what our rec department's doing. But just this week alone, we have a few Beat the Heat events, which will continue throughout the summer, especially in those days that hit above 85, 90 degrees. We want to make sure that people and kids can go out. We have a couple different splash pad opportunities and a couple different cooling areas that are made to help take care of the kids, but also some of our senior population. And just you name it, but we're action packed. We're super excited. Movies on the beach every Thursday night, and we appreciate our DPW staff coming down here and help set that up. We have our concert series over at the American Legion, or now it's called the McMacken Field. We've named it as the Charles McMacken Legion Lawn.
Okay.
So every Sunday night we're going to have a different concert series that started just last week, and we'll go until the end of the summer.
Yeah, those are always a great event. I know a lot of people come out on Sundays for those events, and, with some of the cover bands and so forth that do that.
Really,
yeah,
really
incredible.
good. So Wildfire was scheduled for the first week. So the good news is it rained like it did for the beginning of the summer. So Wildfire is now going to be pushed to the last week of August, and people are very excited about that. But this weekend we have Smoking Joe and the Henchmen.
Oh, I know Smoking Joe. Yeah.
And then we have a good group coming every single Sunday. So
that's fantastic. One of the other things I wanted to ask you about relative to the beach and events is the Bean PopUp. Talk a little bit about that and how that came about.
So that is the newest, what I hope to see as the next coming of Revere Beach.
Amen.
Speaking to our new DCR Commissioner, Mayor Rigo, our former Mayor Rigo, and the partnership, we've always talked about how can we better activate the beach for, outside of the residents and outside of the restaurants, how can we activate the beach side of things? Being able to go get a towel or a chair or some sunscreen or some beach apparel. And the Bean, obviously a very large company, offered to sponsor this kind of promotional box. So they're doing it 100% complimentary, but that's going to kind of set the tone for what the partnership and DCR and the city are going to do moving forward, and having different pop-ups throughout the beach to be able to go get maybe a t-shirt or a towel or a hot dog or something like
or
that.
a boogie board.
Or a boogie board. You know, I know, hey,
right.
listen, I want a boogie board as much as you do. But, you know, if you come to the beach and you come from all over and you forget to bring your pail, you can go up to a shop. So the idea is to hopefully have, kind of like the Boston Redevelopment Authority had, different vendors, not all the same, because you don't want to have 8 shops
Right.
and have all the same gear. You want to have different vendors spread out strategically throughout the beach to be able to offer an amenity to our residents.
That's fantastic, and you're right. I mean, that's something that has been long needed. You know, because I've had many people come up to me and say, "Jesus, we wish we had a place along the beach that we could go to get stuff like that."
Right.
So it's fantastic to hear that's
it's
coming
long
up.
overdue, and we're
Yeah.
so excited that it is coming. It is.
Great. Well, turning away from the beach, I wanted to ask you, what's it like being acting mayor, particularly in an election year where you are one of the
Right.
candidates? So that's got to be a fine line to be walking at this point.
You know, I feel like there's been a few booby traps set up for me, but I'm used to navigating the turbulence and running a large municipality. No matter if you're the acting mayor, the full-term mayor, city manager, whatever it may be, the city can't stop. It operates 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. So, you know, I have to do the job as the mayor, whatever the title is. It really doesn't matter. I want to serve our residents, and that's what I'm here to do. So, when you call me, or when the residents call me, we need to make sure that we're there and we're active, and we're also thinking ahead. So, just because I'm in an acting role doesn't mean we can't start planning for the next 6 months, the next year. Day one, you know, I came on the end of April. Day one, we had to start planning on our upcoming budget, which was due to the council in June, early June. So we had about 5 weeks to plan. We met with all the department heads. We met with all of as many city employees as we could, and departments to make sure that we were taking care of them and doing what's right by the taxpayer. We put together a really comprehensive budget. Obviously, didn't do this alone. I have a wonderful team, and we put it together in just about 5 weeks. We put it out to the council, and it was so good that the council really pretty much approved it without really any changes. I believe the total change was 0.0003%. So it was less than 0.003%.
Wow, that's fantastic. And you hit on, I was going to ask you, what are some of the highlights about this year's budget? And you hit on them right away there. And going back to, like you say, the team, and having been involved in a couple with some of the areas that I've worked with, Rich Viscay, and not just to pull one person out of the hat, but I mean, watching him, it's incredible.
He's done this in a few different municipalities. He's been on with the city for approximately 5 years, and there's one thing I can tell you: he knows municipal budgeting very, very well. I think it's almost become boring to him, so he tries to add some different levels of excitement. Yep. But you know, I come with a lot of private sector experience, and you know, putting out budgets not just for one operation, but for multiple operations. At one point, I think we put 34 budgets together for my company and all of the independent businesses that we have, because they're all LLCs. So going through that process over the months, it's something that I became very familiar with and very aware of. The terminology, municipalities and private sector have slightly different terms, but it's money in, money out. And how do you serve the needs of all? And you have to make sure you're protecting every side. Certainly from the city of Revere, I know my number one responsibility is to the taxpayer.
Yeah.
So I was cognizant of that. And again, I think that we did have a lot of harmony. I applaud the city council for approving the budget the way, really in its truest form, because they recognize that it wasn't inflated, it wasn't overburdened, and they approved it. Like I said, with very little change, because I think that everyone realized it was a very good budget, and the citizens will be happy with it, and the council was happy with it, and all the departments were happy with it.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes you see, you know, like in the journal, you know, grumbles or whatever about the process and whatever, and I don't think I heard any of that this year. So that speaks volumes to
very open,
how that
very
was done.
Transparent. We had multiple meetings, and everyone had an opportunity to come in. You know, that's something you talked about as acting mayor. You know, some of the slight changes is coming from a more people. The people industry, I call it, the hospitality industry is very people oriented, as you know, much like the beach. And and I've said, listen, I know that there's a slight change. When that door is open, I am available. Sometimes you do have closed door conversations, whether it's with a staff member or a resident. Those are private conversations. But when that door is open, if someone comes to City Hall and they want to speak to the mayor, they're going to get the mayor. Yep. It's as simple as that. They're going to get the acting mayor, the mayor, whatever they want. You can call me whatever you want. Just don't call me late for dinner, and you're going to get someone to talk to.
And we hit upon the budget, and which determines the course of the city and the funding available for things going forward. There's been another fairly recent change within the last year to another very important department, and that is economic development. Tom Skorowski coming on board. Can you talk a little bit about Tom, his background, and the things that they're looking at right now, and what we can see going forward?
So Tom comes from a much different municipality, but he's fairly local to Greater Boston. He lives over in Melrose, so he's not that far from the city of Revere. And he said he was eyeballing Revere because he saw the opportunities in our city, and he saw what we were doing, because we did have great leadership prior to Tom as well. So we're really exceptional people like Bob O'Brien and team, who is since retired or semi-retired, and Bob was such a great asset to the community. But Tom comes with great experience. He's actually navigating the waters with us when we're talking about the future of Suffolk Downs, but also things that that are really important to you, like the Beachmont Arts Project. So we're going to be taking that, we're going to be transforming that shut down fire station into an art center. And we noticed that the residents of Beachmont have changed. And over the last 20 years, you're starting to see a little bit of a younger crowd coming in, a little bit more of an eclectic balance. And they want to have those types of amenities, but not just for the neighbors of Beachmont. Well, if you're over in West Revere or North Revere and you are looking for some different art space and music space, similar to a ZoomX in East Boston, that's going to be the future destinations in cities like Revere.
Yeah.
So,
when I heard recently that in moving that forward, that they had visited with ZoomX, I remember visiting when this first came up about 4 or 5 years ago, and there was another organization in Lynn which escapes me, but seeing those as models for what they're trying to do, I think is a great idea.
We toured, Councilor McKenna and I, we toured ZoomX, and first of all, I never realized how artistic she was, not just with art and drawings, but she grabbed about 3 different guitars and was able to play them, and I was dumbfounded. I couldn't believe it. I don't have an artistic bone in my body. I should say from that type of art, But she blew me away, and I was amazed. But we went there, and then I also went to Artists for Humanity in South Boston, which is an unbelievable venue. Those are both more privately funded. So they do have a little bit more of a revenue source. The City of Revere obviously is a public fund. We have solicited some donations, so we're getting some revenue in, and the hopes is that we'll be able to start it, and then eventually kind of work on how it's operated and who operates it, so that we don't pass that burden off to the taxpayer, but the users and the people that are enjoying it are able to help support it and make sure that it's just a benefit to the entire community.
Yeah. I'm talking about some other things within the community, and I believe we've got a new DPW facility going up and a new Parks and Rec that's both are kind of in the progress. You want to talk about those?
So I just took a tour down the DPW, and we're going to be going in a few weeks. They're getting very close to being able to offer us temporary occupancy, which is a huge piece. If you go back, just 6 years ago, just 7 years ago, the prior DPW facility was outdated. It didn't serve the needs of the people, didn't serve the needs of our employee base. It was falling apart, water coming in, didn't protect the equipment, didn't protect. It just wasn't a good environment if you want to serve 65,000 residents. So having that forward thinking, the former mayor and also the city council approved the construction of a new DPW facility, which the process started just about 6 years ago. The construction started about 2 years ago, and we are within 4 weeks away from probably opening the doors, and we're really excited
fantastic.
about it. It's long overdue, but on top of it, the employees down there deserve it. They really do. The residents of Revere deserve it.
Yeah. Well, and speaking for anybody in any job like that, it's nice to be able to come back to your office or whatever and have a place that,
Yeah.
you can, number one, be proud of, but relax in too, in some respects.
And they've been working out of temporary shelters right now, so they're going to be excited to be able to go to a place where they can have a cup of coffee, start their day off right, and head out into the field and make sure that they're taking care of our constituents.
So what about the Parks and Recreation facility?
So I'm not going to lay out too much, but again, it's something that you have to look at as the acting mayor and how things are going to play out in the years to come. Our youth facility right now, our Parks and Rec space, it's a transformed old home, right? That they have used every nook and cranny and done as much programming as they could out of there. What we have done is we are in the process of getting the Robert Haas athletic facility opened up, and the Wellness Center will be opened up probably in about 6 weeks. And that'll be up and operational. And our recreation department is going to kind of relocate some assets over there to make sure that they're having good programming there. And it's just a good space to be able to grow a little bit more into. But I have a few other, I would say, tricks up my sleeve to make sure that we're taking care of the future needs with some other space. As you know, we were fortunate enough to take control of McMacken Park. And that's something that the city will be looking at, creating a really state-of-the-art recreational facility down the road. It does take a little bit of site work, as you know, that it's a very low-lying area that takes on a lot of water. So we have to look at the site and make sure that before we put anything into there that it's going to be solvent. So we are looking at that. And then just across the street, we have what was formerly the food hub, and we're looking at adding that into the mix of more recreational opportunities, not just for our youth though, but for our senior population as well, because there's good space over there, there's parking, and it's adjacent to what will be a beautiful field, and we want to utilize that for youth and senior opportunities.
Oh, fantastic.
In space.
So moving on to one other subject that has been a major topic of discussion within the city, and that's the high school. And not getting into pros and cons, one idea or the other, because it's a very divisive thing. But what is the current status of that whole process?
Well, if you have 4 days, we can probably go over it. But ultimately, the status is right now they have gone back into site review and schematic design for where the current high school is located. So you have the current high school, you have the Rumney Marsh Academy, and you have a few ball fields in between. So we're revisiting how it could fit potentially on that space. There's a lot of angst that comes along with that, and again, I don't want to get into the weeds there, but we owe it to the residents of Revere to make sure that we're looking at all sites. If the Wonderland site is taken off the table, then we owe it to the residents of Revere to look at the next option, and that is the current site, and that's what we're in the process of doing right now.
So next step in that process, while you're going through that, I mean, so they're looking at what is it, a year down the road or something for the next submission to the state.
So that feasibility is something that's about a year-long process. Okay. We're about 2 months into it, 3 months into it. So at some point, probably early next year, there'll be probably some sort of a recommendation, and then that'll be something we put forward to the MSBA and see how we can get moving on that. I would say we're looking at if that's the direction we head, we'll probably be looking at sometime late next year when shovels potentially can go into the ground.
Okay. So moving on to another thing, two items that were not necessarily in control of the city, but the city certainly needed to react for them. Mm-hmm. One, of course, is the summer tunnel closing, and I'm sure, as we all know, I mean, there's been a major impact to the whole area. But let's talk about the city's reaction, the city's monitoring of the process, and how do you think it's going right now?
I think it's going as well as expected. We had a huge communication process that was started months and months and months ago. So if you say that you didn't hear about it, it's pretty tough to understand. We had not just the city, but we also had East Boston, cities north of us, all the municipalities around realized that there was going to be a severe impact on the closing of the Sumner Tunnel. Unfortunately, it was work that was long overdue. So they did choose that 7-week stretch throughout the summer when people tend to take more vacations, school's not in session, and there's a lot more work from home opportunities. But they had to do the work. The work was something that it was going to become a danger to our residents and residents all around if they did not address some of the long overdue concerns. It is going as well as expected. It's not fun for anyone. It's not even for me, who traveled into Boston 6 days a week for the last 25 years. The one day or so that I do go into Boston, if I go during a rush hour period, it certainly is not as exciting as I like. But you know, the free tea at the Blue Line stops, the expanded ferry service, the expanded bus services, things like that have been really good, and the effort from all of the municipalities around and communicating it has been really good. And I'll give credit to our residents. They've been very good. I've talked to a number of them that have, you know, empowered their employers to say, can we work from home an additional day a week? Or they're choosing to take their vacations. So everyone has really done their part. Average travel times have ticked up, you know, between 15 and 20 minutes, and then some people have said that it's exacerbated to between a half hour and an hour, you know, depending on where they work. But when it's all said and done, at the end of August, when we open that tunnel back up, I'll be relieved. But the coordination between all of the authorities, especially the police and fire, has been very good. And as you know, you've probably read in the papers, there's been a few medical emergencies. They've done an awesome job shutting down the tunnel, getting people through, and making sure that there were no life safety issues throughout this process.
I read about that, and it was amazing when you make a plan on how it works. And of course, it's interesting to know that this will be 2 months this year. It'll be 2 months next year, not to put a cloud on it. But bottom line is, it could have been 4 months this year,
yes.
which is the silver lining in that plan.
I don't know if we could sustain that.
Yeah.
But again, we're right at the halfway point, just about, and we're all kind of excited to get to the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. I love it.
But we want to get that back open for in time for Labor Day, and get people back to work and get them in on time.
One last item, and we are sitting on Revere Beach, and of course, with all the different rains that we've had, there's been a number of beach closures. Revere Beach is open right now?
Revere Beach is back open. The good news, we did have some heavy rain, and we'll see what the test results show. Now, you got to remember, you'll hear people like Don Chiaramella, our Chief of Infrastructure, talk about SSOs. Revere had some of the most torrential rain in its history just last weekend on Friday night. We did get some backed up areas, and there was some flooding. But of SSOs, there was really only 3 SSOs in the entire city. 5-10 years ago, there would probably have been 30. And so that just goes to show you the infrastructure work that we have put in to make sure that those sewer overflows aren't happening on a regular basis. That's when the problems happen. But there's some other cities and towns that are nearby that have to step up as well, and I'm calling upon them to make sure that they do, because we're seeing that some of that pollution and that overflow is coming from some of the municipalities that are close by. But this is normal in any community. So I come from an industry that relied heavily on shellfish farming, and every time you would have more than a few inches of rain over a period of time, they would shut down shellfish beds. And they do that because they know that contaminants, whether it's overflows or just contaminants running from the ground, hitting the shoreline, that contaminants, whether it's from a car or from litter, hitting the surface of the ocean, is going to carry contaminants into the water.
Yeah.
So you need to let that clear.
Yeah.
And so it's very standard when you have more than a few inches of rain over a 24-hour period of time.
And I know the work that Donnie and his crew and DPW and the city as a whole have been doing to clear up all of that stuff. So it's great to hear that the impact, as bad as it may have been, wasn't as bad as it has been in the past.
We're so much more equipped than we have been in the past. Yeah.
Well, I'm getting the signal that we need to wrap this up. It's been a real pleasure, Patrick.
The pleasure is all mine. I really appreciate you.
I look
Thank you,
forward
Revere
to
TV.
to having this conversation at some point in time. Maybe in the future, in whatever capacity.
We'll do this again next year.
All right, take care.
Thank you.